There was a time when marriage vows meant something. There was a time when a man looked his wife in the eye and said, "For better or for worse," and actually meant every single word. But what happened on the Family Feud stage in June 2024 would prove that some people say those words without ever meaning them at all. A husband and wife stood side by side on national television, smiling for the cameras, pretending to be the perfect couple. But when one question from Steve Harvey cracked the surface, the truth came pouring out in a way that nobody could have predicted. Steve Harvey has been in the entertainment business for over 30 years. He has seen it all. But on that day, even he stood at his podium and said, "I cannot believe what I am watching right now." What happened next changed two families and reminded every single person in that studio what loyalty really means. If stories like this grab your heart and don't let go, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel right now. We bring you the most powerful moments from Family Feud every single week, and this one is going to leave you speechless. The Mitchell family from Charlotte, North Carolina walked onto the Family Feud stage looking like they had stepped out of a holiday photo card. There were 5 of them. The team captain was 46-year-old Gregory Mitchell, a real estate agent with a tailored suit and a smile that looked like it had been practiced in the mirror 1,000 times. Beside him was his wife, 44-year-old Sharon Mitchell, a woman with a warm face and steady hands who worked as a school librarian. Behind them stood Sharon's mother, 68-year-old Miss Evelyn, a retired postal worker who had driven up from Charleston, South Carolina for the taping. Next to Miss Evelyn was Sharon's younger brother Curtis, and at the end of the line was Gregory's business partner, a man named Terrence who had known Gregory since college. On the other side of the stage was the Nguyen family from San Jose, California, a tight-knit Vietnamese-American family of 5 who owned a nail salon together and had been saving up vacation days for months to make this trip. They were cheerful and competitive and ready to play. But as the cameras would soon reveal, the real competition on that stage was not between two families. It was between the truth and the lie that Gregory Mitchell had been telling for almost 2 years. Sharon and Gregory had been married for 22 years. They had met at a church retreat in the Blue Ridge Mountains when they were both in their early 20s. Sharon had been a college student studying library science. Gregory had been working his first sales job at a furniture store and dreaming of something bigger. They bonded over hymns and hiking trails and long conversations about what kind of life they wanted to build together. Gregory told her he was going to be somebody. Sharon told him she already thought he was. They married the following spring in a small ceremony at the same church where they had met, with Miss Evelyn crying in the front pew and Sharon's father walking her down the aisle in a suit he had borrowed from a neighbor because he could not afford to buy one. For 20 years, the marriage worked. Not perfectly because no marriage is perfect, but genuinely. They built a life together in Charlotte. Gregory got his real estate license and slowly grew his business. Sharon got her master's degree in library science and took a position at an elementary school where she became beloved by students and staff alike. They had no children of their own, a fact that had caused both of them private grief over the years, but they poured their love into Sharon's nieces and nephews and into the community around them. They volunteered at their church. They organized neighborhood block parties. Gregory coached a youth basketball league on Saturday mornings. Sharon ran a summer reading program at the library that served over 200 children every year. To everyone who knew them, they were the couple who had figured it out, the couple who proved that marriage could last. But 18 months before the Family Feud taping, something shifted. Gregory's real estate business started booming. He was closing bigger deals, working later hours, and spending more weekends at open houses and client dinners. Sharon was proud of him at first. She understood ambition. She had watched her own father work double shifts at a textile factory for 30 years so that his children could go to college. Hard work was a language she spoke fluently. But the late nights turned into overnight trips. The client dinners turned into weekends away. Gregory bought a new car, a new watch, and a new wardrobe, and when Sharon asked about the expenses, he told her it was important to look successful in real estate. She believed him because she trusted him. She believed him because in 20 years of marriage, he had never given her a reason not to. What Sharon did not know was that Gregory had been seeing a woman named Janelle for the past year and a half. Janelle was a younger associate at a competing real estate firm. Gregory had met her at a conference in Atlanta, and the relationship had started with texts, then dinners, then hotel rooms in cities where nobody knew his name. His business partner, Terrence, knew about it. Terrence had covered for him on more than one occasion, telling Sharon that Gregory was showing a property when he was really in another zip code entirely. The Family Feud appearance had been Sharon's idea. She had applied as a surprise for their 22nd anniversary. She thought it would be fun, something they could do together as a family and laugh about for years. When she told Gregory, he smiled and said it sounded great. He did not know that the stage he was about to stand on would become the place where his entire world fell apart. Steve Harvey introduced both families with his signature energy and immediately took a liking to Miss Evelyn. "Now, Miss Evelyn, you drove all the way from Charleston for this." Miss Evelyn straightened her floral blouse and said, "Baby, I would have walked if I had to. This is my daughter's anniversary present to her husband. 22 years of marriage. That deserves a celebration." The audience applauded. Steve smiled at Gregory and Sharon. 22 years, that's real, that's commitment. You don't see that enough these days." Gregory put his arm around Sharon and nodded. "She's my everything, Steve. I wouldn't be where I am without her." Sharon leaned into him and smiled. Miss Evelyn watched from behind them with an expression that was hard to read. If anyone had looked closely, they might have noticed that her smile did not quite match the warmth in her daughter's. The first round went to the Mitchell family. Sharon gave 2 correct answers and Miss Evelyn gave one that brought the house down. The question had been, name something a wife checks on her husband's phone, and Miss Evelyn had said, his messages, his call log, and his location, because trust is good but verification is better. The audience roared. Steve nearly fell over laughing. Even Gregory laughed, though his laugh came half a second too late and ended a beat too early. Terrence, standing at the end of the line, did not laugh at all. He stared at the floor and adjusted his tie. Between rounds, Steve asked Sharon about her work at the library. Sharon's entire demeanor changed when she talked about her job. Her eyes lit up and her voice lifted. She told Steve about the summer reading program and how some of the children she had worked with 10 years ago still came back to visit her. She told him about a boy named Deshaun who had been a reluctant reader in the 3rd grade and was now a sophomore in college studying English literature. "He sends me a book recommendation every semester," Sharon said, beaming. "That's how I know I chose the right career." Steve was genuinely moved. "Sharon, the world needs more people like you, people who plant seeds and actually stick around long enough to watch them grow." Sharon touched a thin silver bracelet on her wrist, a gift Gregory had given her on their 10th anniversary, and said, "That's all I've ever wanted to do, plant seeds." The second round brought the question that would change everything. Steve read the face-off prompt. "Name something that would make you suspicious that your partner is cheating." Sharon and the Nguyen family captain both reached for the buzzer. Sharon hit it first. Without hesitation, she said, "Coming home smelling like perfume that isn't yours." Number 1 answer, 32 points. The audience clapped, but something happened in that moment that the cameras caught perfectly. Gregory flinched. It was small, barely noticeable, but the high-definition cameras and the close-up angle captured it clearly. His left eye twitched, his jaw tightened, and for just a fraction of a second he looked at Terrence. Terrence looked at the ceiling. The Mitchell family chose to play the round. Curtis gave a good answer. Miss Evelyn gave another one. Then it came to Gregory. Steve repeated the question. "Name something that would make you suspicious that your partner is cheating." Gregory cleared his throat and said, being protective of their phone." It was on the board, number 3 answer, but his voice had changed. The smooth confidence was gone. He sounded like a man reading a confession disguised as a game show answer. Miss Evelyn was next. She looked at the board, then she looked at Gregory. And then she said something that was not an answer to the question on the board. She said, "You know, Steve, I raised my daughter to be a good woman. I raised her to be loyal, to be faithful, and to believe the best in people. But I also raised her to know her worth. And sometimes, knowing your worth means opening your eyes to what is right in front of you, even when it breaks your heart." The studio went quiet. Steve tilted his head slightly, trying to figure out if Miss Evelyn was giving a game show answer or delivering a message. Sharon looked at her mother with confusion. Gregory looked at Miss Evelyn with something that looked very much like fear. Steve, sensing the shift in energy, tried to move the game forward. "All right, Miss Evelyn, I'm going to need an answer from the board." But Miss Evelyn was not finished. She reached into her purse, which was sitting on a small shelf behind the podium, and pulled out her phone. She held it up so that Gregory could see the screen. "Before we keep playing this game," she said, her voice steady as a church bell, "maybe Gregory should explain why a woman named Janelle has been calling him every night for the past year and a half. Maybe he should explain the hotel receipts I found in his jacket pocket when Sharon asked me to take his suit to the dry cleaner last month. Maybe he should explain why his business partner over there has been lying to my daughter's face every time she calls looking for her husband." The studio did not gasp. It did not murmur. It went completely, absolutely, profoundly silent. The kind of silence that has weight to it. The kind of silence that presses against your chest. Sharon turned slowly to look at her mother. Then she turned to look at Gregory. Her face went through confusion, then recognition, then a kind of pain that does not have a name in any language. She did not scream. She did not cry. She simply looked at the man she had been married to for 22 years and said one word. Gregory. It was a question and an answer at the same time. Because in the way she said his name, in the way her voice cracked on the second syllable, everyone in that studio knew that somewhere deep inside, Sharon had already known. She had felt it. She had smelled the perfume. She had noticed the late nights. She just had not wanted to believe it. Gregory opened his mouth and closed it. He looked at Terence, who had taken 2 full steps backward from the podium, as if physical distance could separate him from the situation. Gregory looked at the audience. He looked at the cameras. And then he looked at his wife, and whatever lie he had been preparing died on his lips. He could not say it. Not here. Not with Miss Evelyn holding the evidence in her hand. Not with Sharon looking at him with those eyes. He lowered his head and said nothing. And his silence was the loudest confession that studio had ever heard. Sharon's brother Curtis stepped forward. He did not move toward Gregory. He moved toward his sister. He put his hand on her shoulder and stood beside her, a wall between Sharon and the man who had just broken her heart. Miss Evelyn put her phone back in her purse, folded her hands in front of her, and stood tall. She had done what she came to do. She had not driven 6 hours from Charleston to play a game show. She had driven 6 hours to set her daughter free. Steve Harvey stood at his podium for a long time without speaking. When he finally opened his mouth, the first thing he said was, "I cannot believe what I am watching right now." He set his cards down and walked slowly to the center of the stage. He did not address Gregory first. He addressed Sharon. "Sharon, I want you to look at me." Sharon lifted her eyes. They were filled with tears, but none had fallen yet. She was holding them back with a strength that most people do not know they possess until they have no other choice. "I don't know all the details," Steve said. "That's not my business, but I know this. You are standing on this stage right now, and you are still standing. After what just happened, you are still on your feet. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are." Then Steve turned to Gregory. His voice dropped lower. "Sir, I'm not going to lecture you. You are a grown man. You made your choices, but I will say this. That woman applied for this show as an anniversary gift for you. She wanted to celebrate 22 years of building a life with you. She brought her mother. She brought her brother. She brought your best friend. And this is what she got in return." Steve shook his head slowly. "I've been married. I've made mistakes. I am not a man who throws stones, but there is a difference between a mistake and a pattern. And brother, what I'm hearing about sounds like a pattern." The audience erupted, not in anger but in affirmation. Heads were nodding. Women were wiping their eyes. An older man in the 5th row had his arm around his wife, holding her tight, as if watching this moment had made him realize how precious what he had truly was. Then something unexpected happened. Mrs. Nguyen, the matriarch of the opposing family, walked across the stage. She was a small woman in her 60s with silver-streaked hair and the quiet authority of someone who had survived things that most people could not imagine. She walked right up to Sharon and took both of her hands. She did not speak English perfectly, but what she said was clear enough for every person in that studio to understand. "You are a strong woman. I see you. Don't let this break you. You have people who love you." "That is enough." Sharon's tears finally fell. She squeezed Mrs. Nguyen's hands and nodded. 2 women from completely different backgrounds, different cultures, different languages, standing on a game show stage and sharing a moment of pure human solidarity. The audience gave them a standing ovation that lasted over a minute. Steve made the decision to continue the game with a modified format. Gregory and Terence were asked to step off the stage. They left quietly, without protest, without eye contact. The Mitchell family played the remaining rounds as a team of 3, Sharon, Miss Evelyn, and Curtis, and the Nguyen family graciously agreed to play with the adjusted format. The final round went to the Mitchells. When it came time for fast money, Curtis went first and scored 112 points. Then Sharon stepped up to the podium. Steve stood beside her and said quietly, "You came here to celebrate your family. That hasn't changed. Your family is standing right behind you. Play for them." Sharon wiped her eyes, placed her hands on the podium, and answered all 5 questions with a clarity that surprised even Steve. She scored 106 points. The total was 218. They had won $20,000. Miss Evelyn raised both hands in the air and shouted, "Thank you, Jesus." Curtis lifted Sharon off her feet in a bear hug. And Sharon, for the first time all day, laughed. It was a small laugh, still bruised around the edges, but it was real. And it was the beginning of something new. After the taping, Steve Harvey sat with Sharon, Miss Evelyn, and Curtis in a private room backstage for nearly 45 minutes. No cameras, no producers, just people. Steve told Sharon that he admired her composure and that she had handled a devastating situation with more grace than most people could manage. He asked Miss Evelyn why she had chosen to reveal the affair on the show rather than in private. Miss Evelyn's answer was simple. "Because my daughter would have forgiven him in private." She would have swallowed it and kept going, the way she has swallowed every disappointment that man ever gave her. I needed her to see herself the way the world sees her. I needed 200 strangers to tell her what I have been telling her for 44 years, that she deserves better. Steve was quiet for a long moment. And he said, "Miss Evelyn, you did not come here to embarrass your son-in-law. You came here to save your daughter." Miss Evelyn nodded. "That's all a mother ever wants to do." When the episode aired 7 weeks later, it became the most talked-about television moment of the summer. The clip of Miss Evelyn pulling out her phone was viewed over 120 million times across social media in the first 2 weeks. News anchors discussed it. Relationship podcasts devoted entire episodes to it. The phrase, "I didn't drive 6 hours to play a game show," became a trending quote that people used to describe moments of fierce maternal protection. But beyond the viral moment, the episode started real conversations. Marriage counselors across the country reported an increase in couples seeking therapy in the weeks after the episode aired. Several therapists told news outlets that clients were coming in saying, "We saw that Family Feud episode, and it made us realize we need to talk about some things before it's too late." Sharon used the $20,000 to retain a divorce attorney and secure a small apartment near her school. The divorce was finalized within 5 months. She did not ask for much. She wanted peace, and she wanted to keep the silver bracelet Gregory had given her on their 10th anniversary, not as a reminder of him, but as a reminder of the woman she had been during those good years, a woman who believed in love and gave everything she had to make it work. She also expanded her summer reading program, using a portion of the winnings to buy new books and supplies. She told a local reporter that the program had always been her way of planting seeds, and that she was not going to stop planting just because one part of her garden had died. Gregory's reputation in the Charlotte real estate community took a significant hit. Several clients dropped him after the episode aired. His business partner Terrence quietly dissolved their partnership and relocated to Raleigh. Gregory did not make public statements or post on social media. People who knew him said he was ashamed, and that for the first time in his life, he was being forced to sit with the consequences of his choices without anyone there to cover for him. Whether he used that shame as a foundation for genuine change or simply waited for the spotlight to move on, only time would tell. 1 year after the episode, Family Feud invited Sharon back for a special update segment. She walked onto the stage in a cobalt blue dress that she had picked out herself, without anyone's input or approval, simply because it made her happy. She was wearing her mother's reading glasses pushed up on top of her head, because she had come straight from the library. The audience recognized her immediately, and the ovation started before she even reached center stage. Miss Evelyn was in the front row of the audience this time, watching her daughter with the quiet pride of a woman who knew she had done the right thing, even when it was the hardest thing. Sharon told Steve and the audience that she was doing well. She had been promoted to head librarian at her school. She had expanded the summer reading program to serve 3 schools instead of 1. Deshaun, the boy she had told Steve about during the original taping, had graduated from college and was now student teaching at a middle school in Charlotte, and he had asked Sharon to be his mentor. She told the audience that she had started a monthly book club at her church for women going through major life transitions, divorce, loss, career changes, or any situation where the ground had shifted underneath them. The club was called New Chapters, and it had grown from 8 women to over 40 in less than a year. She said that books had always been her refuge, and that sharing them with other women who needed a safe place to land had given her a new sense of purpose. Steve turned to the camera and spoke directly to the viewers at home. "I want to say something to everyone watching. This woman came on this stage a year ago and her world fell apart in front of millions of people. She did not plan for it. She did not ask for it, but she survived it. And she did not just survive it, she grew from it. She took the worst moment of her life and turned it into a new chapter. That is what strength looks like. Not loud, not dramatic, not angry, just steady, just forward, just one foot in front of the other until you get to the other side." He looked at Sharon. "Your mother was right to do what she did, and you were right to keep going. The world is better because you are in it." Miss Evelyn became something of an unexpected folk hero after the episode aired. Women her age sent her letters and messages praising her courage. Younger women called her the mother everyone deserves. At her church in Charleston, the pastor referenced her actions in a sermon about the difference between keeping the peace and keeping the truth. Miss Evelyn was characteristically humble about the attention. When a local news station asked her if she had any regrets about what she did, she said, "My only regret is that I didn't do it sooner. My daughter spent a year and a half wondering what was wrong with her, wondering why her husband seemed so far away. Nothing was wrong with her. Something was wrong with him, and she needed to know that before she wasted one more day of her beautiful life trying to fix something she didn't break. The story of Sharon Mitchell and the day her mother stopped a game show to tell the truth has been viewed hundreds of millions of times across every major platform. It has been discussed in marriage seminars, referenced in self-help books, and shared in group therapy sessions for women recovering from betrayal. But for Sharon, the most meaningful legacy is much simpler. Every afternoon, she sits in her library surrounded by children who love to read, and she knows that she built this life with her own hands. She did not need Gregory's success. She did not need his approval. She did not need his love to define her. She had her own. She had always had her own. She just needed someone to remind her. Sharon still wears the thin silver bracelet from her 10th anniversary. Not every day, but on the days when she needs to remember that she is capable of giving deep, unconditional love, and that the failure of her marriage was not a failure of her heart. Miss Evelyn still drives up from Charleston once a month to visit, and they sit together on Sharon's small apartment balcony and drink sweet tea and talk about books and life and the future. Sometimes they talk about Gregory. Most of the time they do not. There are more important things to discuss, like the new chapter Sharon is writing for herself, one day at a time, one page at a time, one sunrise at a time. If this story moved you, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell right now so you never miss another video like this one. Share it with someone who needs to hear it today, because sometimes the most powerful thing you can give someone is a story that reminds them they are not alone. We will see you in the next one.